Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Accessibility Liaisons meeting for March. I'm Alejandra, and my co-lead Kathy and I, we are presenting to you our meeting for March. So let's move on to the next slide. So I don't have any announcements. And Kathy, I don't think you have any announcements, correct?
Not right now, no.
Okay, all right. So then let's just, without further ado, let's go for it. So our speaker today is Marissa Huth with Universal Learner Courses at Learning Enterprise, and we're going to talk about PowerPoint accessibility tips. Well, did I read that wrong? Accessibility tips for PowerPoint, excuse me.
Okay, so should I launch into this?
Yes,
Let's
please.
get my screen shared. Okay. Oh, hold on. I think I launched this before I shared. Let me share first. Screen. It's going to be this one. Are you seeing the slideshow?
Yes, now we can see it.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Well, so thank you. Again, my name is Marissa. And this is not meant to be a fully comprehensive tutorial about all the aspects of accessibility options in PowerPoint. Rather, as I mentioned, I was trying to find some of these things myself and did not discover a whole lot out there that really addressed what I needed. So I just started putting together a kind of a Google Doc with some tips and tricks in it. And it's intended as just a quick way to get started with some of the basics and some of the things that are unique to the way to do things in PowerPoint, as opposed to some of the other tools out there like Word or Google Slides or anything. So in case you were not aware, although I'm sure you probably are, our deadline for making courses accessible, from my understanding, is April 2026. There was a recent article you might want to reference in eCampus News. I'm happy to share the link. And that gives more information about this. And while it specifies, it's talking about, quote, new, unquote, digital experiences, I think that we're expected to update legacy courses that are currently or still being offered. So that's what I was doing. I was recently working on a course and I was mitigating legacy documents in the course for accessibility. And I found that while there's lots of resources on the internet, few were actually current. In other words, aspects or menu items in PowerPoint had changed. Um, and few were concise, easy to use, or specific to what I needed to know. That is, they would give so much information, it was hard to sort through and just grab a few little tips and tricks for what I needed. So I started creating, as I said, my own notes. And in the interest of being proactive, Alejandra asked me if I would share what I found with you. So slide decks, what? They're everywhere, right? It seems like it's the most commonly used thing in courses, at least in the courses that I am an ID for. And maybe I should have introduced myself. I'm an ID for Universal Learner Courses. And most of the courses that I work on are math and engineering courses. But even those have a lot of slides in them. Slides often are sourced from what maybe faculty use as backgrounds in lecture videos. They can serve as a good foundation for students for note-taking. They can download the PDFs or PDFs of slides and use those as a basis for taking notes on. And they are generally meant to emphasize main points or to reinforce or clarify concepts. and they can include images, charts, graphs to illustrate concepts. Oftentimes, they're converted into PDF for ease of distribution, but mitigating PDFs for accessibility can be challenging, especially if the original file that the PDF was made from was not set up with accessibility in mind. So what I found that it can be easier to just recreate a PowerPoint from scratch if the only thing that I have available to work from is a PDF, which was the case for the course I was working on recently. So the first thing I was looking for is what tool should I use? And it came down to pretty much choice between PowerPoint or Google Slides. And I had heard PowerPoint was just generally better, but I tend to be the type of person that always wants to know why. So I can get you more of a list of features, but some of the things is that the accessibility checker is more comprehensive in PowerPoint. And Google lacks the option to mark an image as just decorative if you don't want to add alt text to it. Those are just a couple of the items. And when you take them all together, it just ends up that PowerPoint is a more powerful tool for accessibility than Google Slides is. So whether you're creating a new deck or you're recreating a legacy document, there are aspects of building in PowerPoint that can be useful to understand before you even start. And again, the caveats are that I'm not a PowerPoint expert. In fact, I came from a background of communication and graphic design, and I rarely used PowerPoint. I always used more, I guess, what I would call professional layout tools. So I'm actually not all that great at PowerPoint. So this has been kind of a learning journey for me. The other thing is that I use a PC. So if you have a Mac, you're going to have to adjust for the different keyboard shortcuts that I mentioned, but I assume that Macs have all the equivalent ones that are available in a PC. Okay, first off, first recommendation is to use slides from the master. And if you don't know what a master is, it's the kind of, you would call it the template from which the slides that you use are built. And a temptation is to just put in a slide and start writing. But the masters have slides that are built in a way that's already accessible. So the recommendation is when you want a new slide, go grab one from the master and use that. Or if you've already done that and your slide has features in it that you want to replicate, you could duplicate as long as you're duplicating a slide that was originally built from the master. If you need to alter or set up a master, the way to do that is in PowerPoint is to go to View, Slide Master. And then keep in mind, when you do that, any images that you want to be read by a screen reader should not be on the master slide, because some screen readers read those, but some screen readers do not read the items on the master slide. Okay, then the big thing in PowerPoint to understand is that reading order matters. So slides may have been set up to be visually appealing, and the elements in them may have been added in any order at the whim of the author. So they think of a sentence, they put it in. They think, oh, this would be a great illustration. They stick it in. But the order in which they are read by a screen reader is affected by the order that they are built. And that affects the order in which they are read, and that affects the user experience. So each slide has levels or layers. So down here would be the bottom layer, any number of middle layers, top layer. It doesn't sound intuitive, but the things that need to be read the first need to go on the bottom, and then progressively up to the top, which are the items that are read last. So whether they are text boxes, images, whatever, they need to be put in this order. And the way to add new, the way to add new items or rearrange, I should say, the way to rearrange the items that are there is by going to Home, and then in the drawing group, there will be a tool called Arrange. And you can do that right as you're making the slide, or you could also run the automatic accessibility checker. And when you get to that, it will have a way to rearrange the items or the elements on each slide. Okay, be aware also of the order of any labels, captions, and other elements that you might want to pair with an image, a table, a chart. If you're working on a pre-made deck, the layout chosen by the original creator may not appear in a logical order for a screen reader to read. For example, look at this slide here. Should the text box on the slide with figure 1 in it would it be better if that was read before this image here or after? My argument was that it should probably be read before, even though in this case it's kind of positioned off to the side near the bottom, almost like a caption. So if you get slides that are created like this, you might want to rearrange the order that shouldn't click while I'm in this, that particular text box is in, so that it will be read before the image. That way the user gets an introduction to what that the next thing is going to be an image or a table or whatever it is. And also, this is something that you'll be able to check this in the Check Accessibility tool when we get to that. You can run, by the way, you can run the Check Accessibility tool anytime you want. You don't have to wait till the very end. You can keep it going and open all the time if you want. My particular workflow was I would make the slide or the slide show, and after I was finished with the entire deck, I would run it. But you don't have to do it that way. So in this illustration of a slide, it's a slide that we saw earlier with this little Toy Story motif in there. The image from Toy Story movie would be the last read because it was the last thing that I added to the slide. I think it's kind of hard to see. This is sort of small here. But you can see that off to the right-hand side, it says 1, 2, 3, and the third item is the picture, a Toy Story figurine. And I think the order that the image is read in should be changed. So the options here are you could switch it to be read before the text block, or you could break the text block into 2 different text blocks and then insert the image in between the first bullet point that says they're everywhere, then the image, then go to a next text block which says it can serve as a baseline doc, blah, blah, blah. So to change the orders, the order of the items in the over here on the right-hand side in the reading order panel, you can either highlight an item here and then click on one of those up or down arrows, or you can just click on an item and drag it. Either way, it's really easy to do. Okay, titles. In PowerPoint, slide titles serve as headings, and they should be read first so that a screen reader will give a user a prompt or a cue that that they're starting a new slide, and everything after it is unique to that slide and not part of the previous one. Also, do not use the same slide title twice. The deck I was working in had a lot of that. So what I ended up doing is after the slide title, if there was 3 slides in a row that had the same title, I appended either 1, 2, or 3 after it, or part 1, part 2, part 3, That way, the user who is dependent on a screen reader can more easily sort through the deck itself to find a specific slide. Oh, and also, if you save to PDF, anything that's labeled as a title will be tagged as a header in the PDF. Okay, one of the resources I did find, and it's one of those ones that had way more information than I was looking for, but one of the things they said that I wanted to bring out here, I'm not sure if this is still current, but they did say that in September 2023, in the update to Adobe PDF Maker had a bug in that figure tags or image tags, etc., are misplaced in the tag tree. So the reading order got upset. It's unclear. I did a Google search and I couldn't determine whether that's been corrected. I did not experience problems, but the slides I was using were not particularly complex. So I would recommend reviewing each deck with the accessibility checker and double checking on the reading order. Um, so this was also their recommendations on how to convert to a PDF, which I thought I thought that had kind of was like a settled thing, but apparently not. So their claim is that A, you need to use Windows, which I had not heard. I believe Alejandra uses a Mac and she makes PDFs all the time that seem to be tagged properly. But if you're using a Mac, you might want to be aware. The save as PDF or export to PDF should be used instead of save as Adobe PDF. Again, I used the save as Adobe PDF option and I did not have problems, but apparently some people have. There were mentions of it on the internet. So if you're going to do this, you might want to just take note of that and do a double check for your own sanity. And they also had these other options that if you do choose export to PDF, be sure to check in the options that document structure tags for accessibility is checked. And if you choose minimize size, that will be unchecked, or I'm sorry, that will uncheck the above checkbox. So check it back on again after if you choose that. If you use export as opposed to save as, here are the options available. I'm unclear on the differences between them, and a quick Google search indicated basically there is no difference between Adobe PDF and just PDF. If that's true, I'm not sure why they offer the different options. If anybody else knows this, maybe at the conclusion of the presentation, you could chip in because I found the whole thing kind of puzzling. Again, I use the Create Adobe PDF and I did not have issues. So take that as you will. Okay, tables. Table header rows are another item that the automatic accessibility checker will identify. But I did not notice it checking for first columns. I did mark my tables with first columns. But you should always tag header rows and first columns if they are needed. To do that, you select the table and then go into table design. Also, do not merge or split cells. If you're working on a legacy document and the original author has done this, which happened to me, what I did, I reset the cells so that they were not merged, and I filled in each cell with the same data. For example, if they had merged 3 cells into 1 cell and it contained the word blue, I altered it to go back to 3 individual cells and each of those contained the word blue. Also, my recommendation is to design for low vision, not just no vision. So, for example, adding borders to cells can be to all the cells can be really helpful, even if it doesn't look as stylish or as cool as a lot of the tables out there seem to have these white borders pre-designed into them. And while it might look prettier, it's also harder to see. So my recommendation is to put in clear borders. Also, a neat trick that I found is that ChatGPT can be helpful if you need to recreate a table and you're working from a PDF and just copy and pasting the table is not working. So what I was able to do is I took a screenshot of the table in the original PDF. I pasted that screenshot into ASU's ChatGPT, so I didn't have to worry about data getting out into the world. And I made the prompt, I used a prompt that said, make a table from the data in this image and include a header row and first column. Then it created a table for me, but again, I still wasn't able to directly copy paste into PowerPoint. So I pasted it into Excel. It might also work in Google Sheets, but I didn't try that. Then I opened a master slide and I found I needed to adjust the number of rows and columns to the exact number that I would need in the final table. If I didn't do that, I would get things being repeated. Like if I had too many rows or columns, they would repeat in the extra ones, or things would be cut off if I didn't have enough rows or columns. But once I had the correct number of rows and columns, all I had to do was copy and paste the entire table from Excel into the PowerPoint table, and voila, most of the time it worked. However, caveat, I would double check. There can be cases where it doesn't work. For example, if there was no data in a particular cell, that would upset it and it would just kind of arbitrarily move things into what was supposed to be an empty cell. So double check, scan over it if you decide to use something like this, but it was a real time saver for me. Okay, images. We probably all know that every image needs some type of treatment. Either apply a written explanation for each image or tag it as decorative, which, as you can see in the bottom of the alt text window here in PowerPoint, there's a little checkbox there to mark it as decorative. And you would do that if the image is not actually lending any value to the concept trying to be conveyed, like if it's just there to look pretty but not really give any information. Also, for complex concepts, I have heard a lot of people struggling over writing these, and I just wanted to throw out there that's really something that your SME should be doing. If they want help figuring out how to do that, I definitely give them help there, but they are the expert in the particular concept that is trying to be conveyed. They need to write that. Let's see. If the explanation is shorter than about a sentence, then you can apply the explanation as alt text on the image. There doesn't seem to be, that I found, a technical limit for how long those explanations can be for alt text, but the general recommendation is about 120 to 150 characters. And also to enter the alt text, you can just right click on the image, view alt text, and then there's that box there. You can type the alt text in. If you're converting to a PDF, it should retain the alt text, but again, it's always helpful to do a spot check to make sure that that has worked. For complex images, for example, imagine you had a graph built in, it was built in PowerPoint, and inside PowerPoint, they added multiple lines, arrows, labels, whatever. There's a couple of ways you could do this. You could select each one of those lines, arrows, icons, whatever it is, and group those, and on a PC that's you click those all so they're all selected, and then you hit Control G and that groups them together so that they're treated as one item or one element. And then you can apply alt text to that. Or what I was doing, because I was working from a legacy PDF, I would take a screenshot of them and then insert that screenshot into the new slideshow. That was way faster than trying to recreate the illustration that somebody else had created using the PowerPoint tools. Okay, if the explanation for your image is longer than a sentence, you can create a description that can be associated to the image. But how? How do you do that? I was trying to figure that out. I didn't see a lot of great suggestions that sounded super easy, but some possibilities include if the file is going to be used as a PowerPoint, as a PPTX file, and embedded into Canvas, which you can do that. And if you are interested in an explanation of how, I can send you a link. You can build a text box on the slide, but off to the side of the viewing area. A screen reader will realize that the text box is there and it will read it. It's just that the viewers won't be able to see it. So that's kind of clever. But how often do we actually put real live PowerPoints into a Canvas page? I think most people are probably using PDFs. So if you have a PDF, sorry, I just lost my flow here. Oh, I just wanted to say also if I had another suggestion for putting explanations in the notes under a slide. I'm not sure if that's going to be if that's going to work real well, because I have not tried to use it that way with a screen reader. But Microsoft does have a page, and I can send you the link, that explains how to access notes with a screen reader. But your learners are going to have to know to do this and how to do this. On each slide, they would need to, from what I gather, they would actually need to go check if there were notes on the slide in order to read them. Most often it seems like we're converting these slide decks into PDFs. So if the file is going to be converted to a PDF and you have a long explanation, what you can do is add a link either in the slide or under the PDF on the Canvas page, and put the explanation in a separate file that holds the description. Then the link is to that file. Now, where do you want to put that file? You can either put it in a Google Doc and publish the Google Doc. And to do that in a Google Doc, you go to File, Share, Publish to Web. And then right after, or while you're doing that, if you're making a Google Doc, you can put all of your explanations into the same, from the deck, into the same Google Doc file. And then your links can be made to go to specific paragraphs. To do that, in your Google Doc file, you would hit Insert and scroll down till you see Bookmark and click on Bookmark. And that will insert a little, I don't know what almost looks like a little award symbol right there, but that's a bookmark symbol. Right after it does that, it puts up this little bookmark notification here, and there's an icon for copy. If you click on the copy, it will copy the entire URL with a bookmark included. So anybody that clicks on that can go right to the paragraph in the Google Doc. And that might be the easiest, is to just create a Google Doc with all of the explanations for the slide deck in the same file. Otherwise, if you try to put each explanation in a separate document, that could turn into kind of a mess in your Google Drive. And of course, the other option would be create an HTML page that you could link to. And to do the same thing as a bookmark in a Google Doc, you would create an anchor on an HTML page. And if anybody is interested in learning how to do that, there's lots of resources on the internet. Usually w3.org, I think, is kind of the best one typically to go to, but lots of other places might have explanations that you find more intuitive. Oh, also, if you're going to do an HTML page, you need to have a place to store that. At ULC, we have a server, an Amazon web server, and we store our outside HTML pages on that. Okay, animations or transitions. If your slide deck calls for those, please do not use automated timing. The timing that you select might not work for other people. And I have a YouTube video that talks all about that. If you're interested, again, I can supply the link to that. But if animations are critical to explaining the content, for example, if something needs to go in a very specific order and the faculty wants it explained, first they see this, then they see that, then they see this. My recommendation is you can either group specific elements together, like I said before, and add alt text to each group, or you can just take a screenshot of the illustration in its various states and make a fresh slide with a different screenshot on each slide. And that might be the easiest way to do it, or the clearest way to do it. You could try either way and see which way works better for you. Then also, I also wanted to mention that you need to add a title for accessibility in properties, and you need to specify the default language in properties. I found this a little hard to find. I did find it, but the explanations on the internet of where to find those things were not current. So probably the easiest way to do that is if you're going to make a PDF, go through the Acrobat PDF accessibility checker, and it will prompt you to enter in a title and the default language. And that just seemed the fastest way to accomplish that for me. Then these next few slides, I was just going to zip through real quick. These are just an example of an easy to follow template that I created for myself. Again, for the very first page, I put our logo down there, and I don't know, it would be kind of up to you if you actually wanted that logo to be red or not. If you do not want it to be red, then go ahead and put it in the template on the master. If you do want it to be red each time, then remember, don't put it on the master. You'll have to insert it on, I guess you would call it a child slide. Again, this is just most of my slides ended up looking something like this, and very easy to keep this in order. Then there were some that had more elements in them. And I set this up so that the title would be read first, then the figure, and then the image or the illustration. I also created a couple of tables for myself with the table text box, or the table title text box right there, and a caption or something if that was needed as the last thing read here. And it was nice to have these. This one, I didn't convert the the borders around the cells to black. Unfortunately, I forgot to do that for this example. But it's easier to just copy something like this and add or remove various rows and columns to this to get to the amount that I would need. Same thing, just a different number of rows and columns. And then I just created some shapes in advance for myself so I could just grab them easily and they would look consistent from slide to slide. And I think that is it. Oh, trying to end this now, but my Zoom controls are on top of this. So hold on a second. There we go. Am I still sharing or did I manage to? Okay.
You're not
I
sure.
hope that was clear. I'm happy to send out my collection of links that I mentioned and the video or the slideshow itself, if you like. But if anybody else has suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Those were just the things that I felt would help get me up and running the most quickly, I guess.
I would love the link to the video about, oh gosh, I forgot what it was about.
Well, I'll send them all. So
Okay, great. It'll be in there. Good.
Yeah, we'll share everything on the website.
I'm just curious, Marissa, have you seen the ASU brand guides, the marketing hub? I can't remember what the name of they've changed their name. It's not marketing hub anymore. But they publish a ASU slide deck, like with the masters. Have you seen that one?
I have seen them. I don't know that sometimes I think that those are fine, but they are designed largely for marketing, not necessarily for conveying information the,
Or
in the
courses?
in the most clear way. It's designed to be more flash. So I don't always, sometimes I think that all that stuff kind of gets in the way and is a little distracting. It's pretty, it looks great. And if the intent is to grab somebody's eye as they're perusing a website, or you want them to look at a billboard or whatever as you're going down the highway, but sometimes the way those things are done, they just don't fit well with like really long titles. Like some faculty will have this 3-line long title for a slide or something, and that just doesn't fit in this big blocky stuff that they have for their titles. So yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great to start with those. At the very least, I did use the ASU colors in ours. And if you don't have the actual font, I forget what they're using now. I think it used to be Accidens or something, but the default font is Arial if you don't have that.
Okay.
Sorry?
No, you're right. Arial is for digital, for the web, but I thought print was Roboto, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I may be behind the
thought
times.
Roboto is what they used to use for web pages, and it was something else for print. But it's been a while since I had to use their brand guide. So in any case, you can use Arial, and that's safe.
Aunt Sophia gave us I can't even say it though. You're gonna have to say it for us. Aunt Sophia, can you come off mute and tell us how you say that? Do you know how to say it?
Yes, I think it's Neuhaus grotesque. That's how I say it, at least.
Neuhaus grotesque. Okay.
That's correct. I was trying to think of it, and I'm reading it, and that's correct.
I mean, I'm even looking at it going, that spelling isn't right, but it is.
They must have changed it since a few years ago.
Yeah, they did. It used to be Accidents Grotesque, and now it's
That's
Neuhaus
what I remember.
Grotesque.
Yeah.
My
And-
reader switches to French when it hears it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have questions in the chat. Would you like me to read them?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, I'm a speech pathologist who recently completed a graduate certificate in instructional design and technology. Congratulations. Welcome to the team. I'm a designer myself, so I am considering a career shift and would be so grateful to anyone who would be willing to meet with me to share their experience in the field. Yes, happy to
I'm
do so.
happy to.
Yeah, Marissa and I are in the same team, so.
Okay, so yeah, I can drop you a message in Slack or email, whatever you think is going to be the easiest way. If you can just drop your contact information in the chat, I'll pick it up there and contact you outside of the meeting.
Yeah. Marissa's one of our experts on our team, so I highly recommend hanging out with Marissa. You'll learn a lot.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I have a question. How many people here have access to Adobe Acrobat? So
I
quite a
thought
few.
everybody did if they're an employee at ASU.
Is it everyone?
I believe so. Doesn't everybody have access to the Adobe Creative Suite, and that includes Acrobat?
Yeah, it should be
I don't think
there.
everybody has access. I think everybody has access to the free reader, but I think you have to purchase the Creative Cloud.
You have to purchase cloud.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
Because we get it from our launch pad, at least at LE, Learning Enterprise.
Okay.
But I don't know. Ask.
I think we're considering expanding that. So I need to ask Itzel, but last I heard they were considering expanding it because it can be a major tool for remediating PDFs, but
Yeah.
also for PowerPoint. So, and I
Well,
just,
PowerPoint is part of Microsoft.
right, but if you have Adobe Acrobat, you can, it creates the Adobe PDF creator button. So if you can, it's a button that you can choose to change Microsoft Words or PowerPoints into PDFs. And it
Maybe
depends
that
on,
was the difference, because when I was seeing that option into when you click to either export or save as a PDF, in
yeah.
mine it always said save as Adobe PDF. But then I would have these other options that were also just save as PDF, and I didn't understand what the difference was.
Well,
And a Google
I have
search
like
said
a-
there is no difference. So I don't know.
I have a little button on my toolbar for the Adobe PDF creator. It's actually like an extension sort of that you can add into Word or PowerPoint. Anyway, hopefully that will be available to people. And we'll put instructions on pretty soon here. We'll put instructions on the accessibility side on how to install that. Yeah, it's pretty nice. I think it also gives you an accessibility checker. Well, no, Word and PowerPoint already have accessibility checker, so yeah,
I have a question.
go for it.
Does anyone have any tips for condensing file sizes once you've added alt text? Because like my computer, and I run a Mac, and I can run it fine, but whenever I go to upload to basically anywhere, anything that has embedded alt text, it crashes whatever I'm using. And I've asked a couple people, and nobody seems to have this issue. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong that I keep crashing everything whenever I embed alt text.
Is it a specific application that you're using?
No, just in general. Like if I'm trying to, so like if I have, I don't know, like an image or something, if I embed the alt text instead of applying it separately, if I try to upload it to like LinkedIn or Instagram, or it's happened in Canvas before, or even like on the Slack channels, it'll just error out and it won't load all the way. So is there a way, I think it's like maybe a file size issue, but I'm not sure how to condense it if that's the issue.
How
It
big are the
shouldn't.
files?
Huh?
How big are your files? More than 10
Uh,
megabytes?
no, no.
You can always try save as, and then it should give you an option to compress.
Okay.
And then just, I don't know,
I don't know that didn't occur to me. I'll try that.
yeah, there's different like medium, low, high. I go with high. I
Mhm.
dropped an 80 gig PDF down to like 5 megabytes by doing that.
Okay. I'll try that. Thank you. Because I'm just like, I feel this shouldn't be this difficult. I kind of feel like I'm trying to reinvent the wheel with this.
And you're talking about adding alt text? Like,
Yes.
okay, so
Yes.
most
Like built-in image descriptions.
yeah, most applications have you right click on the image and then
Mhm.
able, like you'll get a little pop-up
Mhm.
when you're able to put in the description.
Mhm.
And you've been able to successfully upload the PDF before putting in the alt text?
Yes.
No, I think,
Okay.
are you talking about doing alt text for images?
Yes. Yeah.
Like if
Mhm.
you're writing a Slack
Like
message or
yes, or images or like PDF, like presentations to PDFs that have images in them with alt text. It just seems like whenever I get to the step of adding alt text to things, I don't know if I miss a setting or something, but it seems to just make everything mad. But I can try further compressing it and see if that
yeah, I guess I guess I'm not understanding the question.
that makes me feel like I'm doing something weird then. So
Well, no, I mean, it would be different. Like if I'm doing, if I'm writing an Outlook email, for instance, and I add a image to the body of the email, I right click on it and I just I go to the, I think you have to click a couple times and I get an image description and I'll just write 1 or 2 sentences in there. So I'm not sure there's no compression or anything involved in that. Are you talking about like you have a document that you have images that have alt text on them and you're trying to compress that document?
yes, but also, so the way I've been saving images, like through Photoshop and on my Mac for save as and stuff, is I have, and that might be a problem, is I have a subsetting or I can add alt text to it directly. But if instead of doing that, if I just did it manually, like you're saying, just right click and add it then, maybe that, I can try that too.
Okay.
I'll try that instead of just doing it all at once.
So in Photoshop, what are you adding the alt text like as metadata to the
Yeah,
actual image file?
yes.
Oh, I had not heard of that. Interesting.
I don't know if
Someone
that's,
suggested it to me a while ago, and I am starting to think that maybe it's not a great idea.
yeah, I don't think that's going to come out as text in HTML. I don't think that's going to be detected. I
Wait,
don't know about documents.
let me see. Okay, I'm having a hard time understanding the intention. So you would like to put alt text in an image
Yes.
and in what kind of document? In a PDF?
PDF or
PDF
just like a JPEG.
or a, okay, so
Either or.
there's no possibility of doing alt text in just a plain old JPEG or a plain old PNG. It's just, they exist on their own. And
Okay. Okay.
those are files that get embedded into other files. And so once it gets embedded into a PDF, which has HTML behind it, then you would tag it as an image. You would tag it as a figure. That's literally what it's called, a figure.
Yeah.
Then once you do that, then you run this checker and then it will prompt you to add the alt text from there. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah, I think
Go
I was
ahead.
given bad advice at one point then. So that was
Oh,
okay.
But you know
I'm
what?
That was just
sorry.
me.
That would be
No,
so cool, wouldn't it? If as you
yeah.
created images, you embed the alt text in the image, data itself, and then it kind of just went with the image. I think that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
I think I was just given advice from someone maybe who didn't understand like they thought they did, and then I thought they understood like they apparently did not.
You see that a
Well,
lot in accessibility.
yeah.
It's, yeah, people don't always understand when you're asking accessibility questions, the technical ones.
Hmm.
A lot of us don't understand it because unfortunately we're not taught it in very
Yeah.
few courses. So a lot of people are just trying to figure it out. Like Marissa, it's like I can't find any documentation on this, and so she goes out and she writes it. She creates it. A lot of us we're still doing that now. We just can't find the resources. So, but that would be an awesome, very cool invention if you could figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm. One thing I thought was really neat, Marissa, I knew that I think because Alejandra told me that when you check the reading order on a PowerPoint, it's backwards. So like the last thing that you want them to read is at the top, and the first thing you want them to read should be at the bottom of the list in PowerPoint. And I mean, I don't know how many times I screwed that up because that just seems counterintuitive to me. But then when you explain that the last thing will probably be like, how they use front and back. That's the furthest back. It was like, okay, now I get that's why it works that way, and it makes a lot more sense to me. So hopefully
Yeah, I
I
think
won't
it
make
helps to
that
think of it
error.
in layers like that, like
Yeah,
building on the foundational layer kind of a thing.
right. Looking at the layers of a cake, that makes a lot of sense to me, and hopefully it'll keep me from making that error. Again, thank you very much.
Sure.
Did we get all the questions in that? Do we miss anybody's question, or does anybody have additional questions or suggestions or tips that they've learned?
I have a question. This
Go
is
for it.
Karen. This is Karen. So I am I like building my presentations in Google because I can access it pretty much anywhere. Does anyone have any suggestions or do you think it works well once I've created it in Google to export it into PowerPoint as far as the accessibility? Am I going to lose anything? Am I going to create extra work for myself when I do that?
So my
oh,
understanding is that PowerPoint has more options. There's some things that Google just plain old doesn't do. For example, I think I mentioned you cannot mark images as decorative. So if you have those images and you haven't been able to mark them as decorative, you'd want to then in PowerPoint go back through and I'm going to send out a link to a training that was put out by University of Washington that actually does a comparison between Google Slides, PowerPoint, Word, and Word on the web, I think it is. Anyways, several different tools, and it outlines very clearly what some tools do and compared to other tools. So for the particular way that you use Google Slides, you might want to look at that and find out what it is that you might be missing if you're
Thank you.
building in Google and what you would want to supplement after you convert them to
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just exported what I have so far, and I can see that it converted one of the slides with text boxes to a table that has no header rows in it. So yeah, I can see there is work I've got to do here.
It also puts on like a bunch of extra little images, or like when like all these text boxes are everywhere on Google Slides. And then when you download it to PowerPoint, suddenly you've got like all these random
Artifacts.
artifacts. There's a lot of artifacts. It's very awkward.
You just
And
right click on them and delete them, but
yeah, that's the only way you can fix it as to delete. So
Thank you.
Personally, I feel like it's easier to create accessible slides in PowerPoint because they do have the accessibility checker that walks you through those steps and makes it pretty easy to make it accessible. But ultimately, it's about like my friends who use screen readers, they hate Google Slides because what I've heard is that you actually they force you to use their uh, uh, keyboard shortcuts. So I've got, maybe I got JAWS running, I've got VoiceOver running, and instead of using the JAWS keyboard shortcuts or the VoiceOver keyboard shortcuts, which I'm used to, which I'm familiar with, I'm being forced to use the Google Suites set. And that's just so frustrating. I just really don't like it. I have no idea why they did it that way. But
That's really good to know. Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like it functions almost like an overlay.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
the dreaded word.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Stay away from them.
I'm going to send out a link to this. Lainey Feingold spoke at CSUN recently, and it's such an inspiring talk too. Because, lately, I think a lot of us have been feeling a little discouraged because of all the stuff that's coming out. But she went in, I mean, I just thought it was a very encouraging and very inspiring talk she gave. So I'll put the link in. But one of the things she talked about is of the gosh, I don't even know how many, 9,000 uh, private lawsuits that went out last year about accessibility. 1,000 of them were about overlays. So, and, I can't even really figure out how these companies are still in business as much as they're being sued. But yeah, it's don't use them. We can't use them at ASU.
And I've been talking with a vendor who is convinced that Accessibility has paid their fine and fixed everything because someone told him that. And I'm like, I can't find any evidence of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
No, it's not just, well, first of all, they're saying that it does make your page accessible. And we all know if you've been in accessibility at any length of time, you know that automated stuff is only going to be able to check maybe 25% of your code. The rest of the stuff takes human intervention, right? Like, is that supposed to be a header or not, or is that alt text appropriate or not? That takes a human being. So, yeah, there's no way in the world, just look at the math. There's no way that it can make your site 100% accessible. So they're getting sued for fraudulent advertising, a lot of them. But it's about something that's legally, required. So these site owners are getting sued for, not being accessible when they thought they were buying a product that would make them accessible. It's really kind of mean and nasty, kind of.
Well, even PowerPoint has a tool that will automatically insert alt text for you if you wanted to. It'll write it for you and insert it on an image. But that doesn't mean that it's appropriate, like you said, for that image. Take a picture of a tree. Well, you might be explaining what a tree is in biology course, as opposed to what a tree is if you're talking about, I don't know, somebody's family tree or something. It would have a totally different explanation. So,
yeah. Although I know the JAWS, what's is it Smart Picture Smart in JAWS that they just came out with not too long ago? That you can turn it on in JAWS, and I think it's just, I can't remember the keyboard shortcut for it, but it'll give you an AI version of a caption for anything in JAWS, and if you got your screen reader running. And I've heard from a couple of people that's just life-changing, that they've been on the web, and somebody told me that for products, especially, like they're trying to buy something, and it gives them finally accurate descriptions of the products that they're trying to buy. So yeah, I mean, I think AI is going to get better and better though at coming up with good and accessible image text alternatives. I hope. Well, guys, we're 3 minutes over. We never do that. If you guys want to stick around and ask questions or just hang out and chat, please, we'll just hang out for a little while. Otherwise, have a great day and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.